I can tell you, we're a happy group today. We're just so happy to be together. And we're so happy you're all here with us. Good morning. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is SkyWire. And I am just so happy to be here. I couldn't wait to get together with all of you and connect in that very, very special place that we create each and every week. So I want to welcome my astounding group of listeners with me. There's Marguerite. Katrina.
Yay! I'm here. Thank you so much.
Good. Jamie. And Gail.
Howdy.
And Elaine made it in the nick of time.
Ha 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 ha.
And we have Mark and we have Heidi.
Hello.
Our lovely couple. So we're here today and we're talking about listening and the blank. So what do we mean by listening and the blank? So the blank is whatever you fit in. Listening is, listening could be, listening was, what I heard, what this, what that. That's what we're going to fill in and have fun with today, is what is in that blank. And so for me, listening is everything. It's observation, it's awareness, it's fun, it's creative, it's all of those things. And so today we're going to play upon our personal experiences, what we've been through this week, because I know leading up to these shows, there's always something exciting that happens. And where listening has taken us. And we've been together for a while, all of us. And we've experienced listening on so many different levels. So I'm going to start with, is that okay, everybody? Are you all in agreement? Everybody, shake your heads. Gail, you there? I think Gail froze. Okay, so we're going to, and I want to thank...
I'm there. I'll be back in a second, but I'm there.
Okay, good. So Marguerite blessed us with her artwork this week, which was really prompting our conversation. So I'm going to start with Marguerite. And let's talk about the blank. What is the blank for you?
Well, there is sort of never really a blank in my mind. And if I get blank in my mind, I'm extremely happy because then I'm connecting with everything. And I can hear it. So if I don't have that blank in my mind, then how can I listen? And so those moments of listening is so valuable. And so this morning, I watched the moon. It was on a red sky just above the horizon. And it was like the sun's red. I listened to it, and my mind got blank. I could hear it. I could listen to it and be present to it. And there is nothing I could say at that moment except recall the story.
Okay, so for you, that was beautiful, and you shared it with all of us this morning. So for you, listening is an openness, ready to receiveness. It's an awareness, it's an observation, it's being there in the moment, it's being present and taking in what you can take in. Would you describe it that way?
Yeah, it's being able to receive.
Being able to receive. Perfect. Okay, now let's go to Katrina. Hey, honey.
There we go. Hello. It's good to be back this week. You know, I have to agree that for me, listening is all of the things that you mentioned, but I sort of get a highlight for what listening is supposed to be for me in the present moment. I would say predominantly I go to listening for guidance, because when you have a lot of, or as an empath, when you have a lot of information sort of coming at you, it's important to really discern and listen to what's the most important thing right now. I mean, that's true for everyone, but for me, I've got a little extra noise in the background. So it's really that piece of inner guidance saying, yes, this is where my heart wants to go. this is where my mind is kind of getting me tangled up a little bit, and sort of listening to all of that without judgment. So to me, listening is all of those things, but specifically guidance and clarity.
Okay, perfect. So I want I want the people who are listening, watching our show today to expand with us as we take on this notion of what's in that blank. Because it's very important as we go forward that we have a deeper understanding. We're at a place to go deeper. And so we want to understand, you know, what listening can mean to all of us. So those of you that are listening can get a real deep concept of, oh, wow, that's what you do with listening. Oh, wow, that's where listening takes us. Oh, wow, they mean that? Yes, we mean all of that. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie, you're next.
Yeah, well, listening for me is definitely pretty much the same as what Marguerite and Katrina have said. I would add to that how I use, how I kind of employ listening. And I have to say, actually, recently I've kind of discovered a new way of using listening, which has this show has been very instrumental in that. It's because I've sort of thought a lot about how listening, we use the expression listening. So what I've been doing recently is using listening to tune in to the divine presence around and within me, and to bring myself into the present moment. Because I'm very much interested in the teachings of Eckhart Tolle, and I've been sort of trying to see how I can live in the present moment. And I find that listening is great, because if you think about it, when somebody says to you, shh, listen, you immediately kind of stop and pay attention, don't you? You know, so when you say that to yourself, I mean, that's what I do. I say that to myself. I say, when I find that I'm distracted, or I've gone off on a trail of thought, or I'm worried, or I've got some stress, then I stop and catch myself, and I just say to myself, shh, listen, just listen. And then I just stop and I pay attention, and I can hear, you know, the sound of the birds, I can hear a car going past, and then suddenly I'm in the present moment. And then I go to the next level, I say, listen again. And then I can hear that presence of the consciousness that's behind my thoughts. That's the divine presence which is behind the thoughts. So I use that. I use the word, listen. I say, shh, listen. And that just brings me immediately into the present moment. So that's how I use, at the moment, that's what I've been working with.
Wow. So you're using a prompt. You're using listening as a prompt to remind yourself as a message to get into the present moment.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's that word, listen. If somebody tells you, listen, then you immediately stop and pay attention in the moment, and it brings you back to the present.
So can you give us an example of something that's occurred for you that when you gave yourself that prompt, something happened? Like you heard something that you might not have been aware of before, or it just took you somewhere. What can you share with us?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not really kind of mind-blowing, but just recently I just went out for a walk up the hill here, and I had a lot of things going on in my mind about projects that I'm working on and deadlines and things that were stressing me out a little bit. But I was walking, you know, on a beautiful walk there, and I was totally disconnected from that. And then I was just thinking about the show, because I think that was last week it was, and I was thinking about the SkyWire show, and thinking about how I can organize my schedule and stuff. And then I thought, well, why don't I use the concept listening and see if that can help me? So I just said to myself, just listen, just listen, just stop, listen. And then my thoughts just immediately kind of settled quietly, because I had to listen. And then I could just hear the birds, and I could hear the nature around me. And as I did that, I realized that I can listen to it's like the presence, the divine presence within you. It's kind of humming away in the background. And you can't hear it if you're not listening. But when you stop and listen, you can hear that presence. It's like a hum. There's like a very low level sort of hum, and you just connect with it. So I just had this moment of coming back to my source in that moment and just enjoying being the presence of that consciousness. And then I lose it again.
Yeah.
But then I come back again.
Yeah, but it comes back. It's never gone for good.
Yeah.
So let's say that this word realization is an act. You are actively listening into this realization, for this realization to become an awareness, for it to become real. You listen to the message in that realization so that you can bring it forward.
Yeah,
Okay?
absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Gail, fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank. Okay, well, first of all, I'm just, I'm loving where you took the show today. I'm really impressed. I just think it's sort of, you're really taking it to the next level and really just going with it. So I just wanted to express that. I think it's awesome. I'm glad to be a part of this. Gee, it's so much what everybody else was saying. If I had gone first, I think I would have said that, for me, listening is that.
Okay.
I think it is that connection to my source. It's how I get there. And I was also thinking about, when I listen, what is it that I actually hear? Sometimes it's words, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just like a feeling or a physical sensation. But however it comes to me, I really, when I listen, I get that exact message that I need in lots of different ways.
Okay. So I'm muting and unmuting myself. The feelings, it gives you the separation. It gives you the space and the clarity to define the message, to position yourself, to take a time out like we do with some of our kids. So that was great, Gail. Thank you. And I see that we have a comment.
Yes, it is Dave Moore, and he says, active listening is not listening to hear, but listening to understand. It becomes a propulsion system that drives us towards results, conclusions, and connections once we harness the understanding that listening is something we do, and not just something that happens.
Anybody want to comment about that? Elaine?
Well, Dave and I are on the same wavelength today because that's essentially what I was going to talk about. Marilyn, when I recall you posting the topic for this week, my remembrance, correctly or incorrectly, was that you posted something like, active listening is blank. Now, I could be wrong about that, but that's what's sticking in my mind. And it just prompted me to recall exactly what Dave has talked about. When you examine yourself, are you listening to respond, meaning listening to respond essentially from an ego frame of reference, where you really have a point to get across, that you really want to be right, like you want to convince others of your rightness, or you are, so you're listening to respond, or are you listening to understand? And by understand, I would say that means experience the connection, the unity, or if you're really aware of someone's apparently different point of view, then you're able to be at that compassionate place that just says, okay, they have different life experiences in this particular moment. What's coming forth it's at their leading edge, and then I can understand. And then once you understand, then you can respond from a point that blesses you and blesses them and, you know, blesses everybody. That's it.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I did post something like that. And because, and listening is active, but the listening that I want to listen to is not the listening, I don't believe this is the listening that comes from the head. I don't think that's the listening that I refer to as listening. Now, somebody else might, but on my path of listening, that is not where I'm not working to tune into my head alone. I'm looking to tune into the balance, but not to the head alone. And so listening is action from the heart. So I posted about listening into the being, or being listening, doing listening, and dreaming listening. And there's differences, and I'd like to get into that at some point. But being listening is just, I mean, I guess there's action, but it's the silence. It's doing nothing. It's letting your pores take over, your senses take over. And of course, doing is the action, and dreaming listening is the creative listening. But all of it has some action and doing involved. So that was good, Elaine. Thanks for bringing that up.
Hey, Marilyn, could I jump in for a second? Because I was just thinking about what Dave said, and I think it's actually a paradox. And it takes me back to the conversation we had last week about giving and receiving. You know, I think that listening is both of those things. It's active in the sense that I think it has to be your intent to listen. But I think it's also just, in a sense, when you receive, you're really not doing anything but being open. You know, you're just creating that space to let whatever needs to come to you to come. So I think it's really, and it's a good example of a paradox, how it's active and receptive at the same time.
Hasn't to do with that.
Right, and it's like, I think that there's some preamble of action that you do to set yourself up to be quiet. Even like what Jamie said, listen. I mean, that's an action that you take, as subtle as it might be. There's some kind of action that you have to take. So good, thank you. All right, Heidi?
Yeah, first I wanted to say we listened and listened and listened, but couldn't hear Elaine and Gail. There was something strange happening. So the active listening sometimes is not enough.
That's true.
Okay, go you first.
Yeah. So sense of humor is important.
Well, yeah. I was going to start out by saying, what? I wasn't listening, But in a sense, that's often true. I want to talk a moment about what often goes wrong with listening, because it happened to me today as we began the show, and I was listening to Margarita and Katrina, and I realized I wasn't listening. I was just formulating a response, and I cannot tell you anything that they said, I was off in myself, let's see, trying to think of something that sounds really profound and intelligent, and make you guys like me even more than you do, So, but if you bear with me, though, I did come up with something despite my poor listening habits, and that was I had an example today of listening to myself. My brain was going all by itself without any help from me whatsoever. I was waking up from a nap after lunch. We still do that in Italy very regularly. It's very nice. But in any event, for some reason, it came into my mind, I need a password for this new gizmo that I have. And I didn't think of it. It occurred to me. And my mind went from password to, my bank password. No, I can't use the bank password. And on to, oh, an old Italian author. I know the Decameron. No, they'd know that if they knew I studied Italian. And so I came up with another one. But I wasn't doing any of this work myself. I was just listening to what my brain was doing automatically, all by itself. Really amusing me, if nothing else, you know. It was delightful not to have to put any effort into this, unlike the listening you're asking me to do today. But anyway, so that's all the farther I have to go, but maybe you can save me from this now.
No, I just say something else.
Okay.
Say one thing before you go on. I just want to make a point of wishing Dave Moore a happy birthday.
Oh, yeah, happy birthday.
Maybe we can sing him a little tune in a little while, but I just didn't want to pass up out there.
There is a comment, Marilyn. Shall I bring it up? This is Jeremy. If you white box it, then you can. It goes up on the screen. If you click on the little white sheet here, and he says, listening is a pregnant pause, an intentional receptiveness, being truly present in the moment, detached from the past or the future. Plug into your power source. Awareness at a deeper level than what you see or hear on the surface. Closing your eyes and really focusing on what you hear and paying attention not only to what is said, but what is unsaid.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for that, Jeremy. That's beautiful. I want to just ask Mark a question. So his action of listening to what was going on, he could listen to that and be perfectly, that's his message, that's his contentment. And then sometimes we listen to that, and we're intended to listen past that. And that's part of listening, that's part of the practice, that's part of the art of listening. Is do we stop there? Is that where we're supposed to be? Or is there some other place that our listening is taking us? So thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you.
Heidi, go.
Yeah, I want to connect what I said just now in the show with Margarita when we talked about harmony. And I brought up the notion of the world is sound. You know, this in the 70s it came out, the overtone singing and the discovery that everything in the world has vibration. And the vibrations you can, with octavization, you can bring into the hearable range for us. And then it becomes sound. So you can have the sound of the earth, the sound of the sun, the sound of your bones, of your heart. You can really put it into the, if you want, technically it's possible, into the hearable way. So what comes out for me, listening, what we call listening normally is with the ears, but actually it's all what you describe. It is the sensing, only that this other perceptions we have are to sounds which are not hearable sounds, frequencies which are not hearable, but they're sensible in some way. We have other receptors for hearing these, sensing these, whatever you want to name it. But altogether, you could say that the world is sound, the universe is sound, because it has clearly definite vibrations which correspond to sound. And so when we talk about listening is all, it really is all. You know? That's mine. I don't hear you. I don't hear you. This is on my end. There is something we don't hear people. So I hope you heard us and we are quiet now. And
can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, now I hear you.
So what Heidi was saying was it's about sound, because everything is a vibration. So listening is I've always said for myself, listening becomes the kahuna of senses, because it takes in it's the umbrella sense over all of the senses. And everything is a vibration, so we are tuning into not just the words, but pass the word into the vibration of things, and that's what we're tuning into. That gives us a vibration that's the deepest, maybe the deepest part. It takes us beyond the word. So that was a really good point. Everybody's making great points. So listen. Okay, so who has something that they want to add right now? Who's ready to go? Marguerite?
Yay! And I will tell you, in the Bible it says, in the beginning was the Word. But that word is sound. And if we go back to the Eastern tradition, it was thought that the sound of Om was the sound that created the physical reality. So, you know, Heidi has an incredibly good point there, talking about everything is listening is all there is. And yeah, I working with crystals and I can hear them. I can feel them. I usually say I'm feeling them, but it's like the vibration, right? And we can use them. You can use anything in our environment to actually heal our inner issues. And as Heidi said, the overtone, I mean, I suggest that you watch this Connections Forum today, because she did such a great impression of me about sound and overtones and everything. So anyway, so that's what I had to say about that.
Cool. All right. So now I don't want this to be so formal. We don't have to wait for everybody to get like a turn. Anybody have something to say? Or ask somebody else. Go ahead, Katrina. Go for it.
I'd like to talk a little bit about how our previous experiences influence our listening, because what I would have heard when I was 15 or 16 in a very different frame of mind is not what I would hear at this age, right? And sort of how our personal experiences or our interactions, collaborations with others help us to listen a little differently. So, you know, say I have a friendship with someone, and I've really learned something very important from them. And so I listen differently after interacting with them because they've enlightened me in a way that I didn't think of before or hadn't really listened to before. So I'd be really interested to hear what people think about that experience, or if there is someone in their life that perhaps had that influence on them. There was a man that I used to work for right when I first moved to Colorado. I had a couple different jobs. And he said to me, because he was trying to give me an assignment for something, and apparently I kept interrupting him. Didn't realize that I was doing that. And he had said to me, "You have something really important to say, and I really would like to hear it, but I can't hear you or listen to you if you're talking over me." And that completely changed the way I listened to people. It was interesting because he reflected back to me something that I didn't realize that I was doing. So I'm assuming other people on the panel have had a similar experience with a friend or just a connection with a person, a family member, that kind of stuff. So that'd be cool to hear. Marilyn's still on mute. So.
Right here. I have a rather different experience. Despite maybe how I appear on this show, I have a habit of being invisible, of not being seen, of not being heard. And here in Italy, it's doubly worse because I'm struggling to speak in Italian, and they're just babbling away and don't even notice that I'm talking. And it can be extremely frustrating. Or the conversation moves on, and meanwhile I'm trying to respond to something I heard a minute ago and formulate something to say. And I am learning, you know, that this is not anything they have to worry about. This is just my problem, and this is what I need to work on and come out of invisibility. I've done a lot of listening. You talked about when you were 14, 15, 16, Katrina, and I remember how I just accepted authority in the classroom from the teacher. I listened, and I heard what they said, and I believed it. Sometimes that wasn't the right thing to do, and I would not listen to many people in that same kind of way anymore. There's so much more that I bring into the transaction these days, and I don't want to be just a receptacle, just to receive what I hear from others. I can listen quite well when I'm not trying to figure out what I want to say in response.
So I could say a lot of things about that, but I'm gonna wait and ask who wants to talk about being visible, not being. I mean, being. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, just thinking about what Katrina said, and then as Mark, as you were talking, then I also started to think of something else which was kind of connected with that. So Katrina, you were saying like the way we listen to people, it changes over time as we grow, as we develop, as we learn about ourselves. We learn better ways of listening. And just connected with what Mark was saying, I found with myself that I've often been in situations where people were kind of demanding something from me, or were talking to me because they needed something, and I was not able to listen to what it was they needed because I had my own agenda. And I often found myself in situations where, like, it's like there's so many people want something from me, but I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do my own thing. I want to just go and be peaceful and quiet somewhere and forget about all these people who keep annoying me, kind of thing. That was the kind of pattern that was going through my mind, and that prevented me from really listening what it was they needed. And on reflection, now when I find myself in that situation, I get that impulse of my old pattern to kind of say, oh, stop annoying me. I want to just be left alone. I get that sort of impulse, but then I catch myself and say, hang on, just listen to what this person wants. Because often what they want is not being expressed in their words. It's kind of, the words are more like a kind of a surface representation of something deeper that they need from you. And often that all that they need from you is a kind of just a comforting energy or reassuring energy. Maybe they're asking for something completely different or superficial, but all they need from you is a kind of an acknowledgement that you're listening to them and that you're recognizing and valuing them. And then I found that if I can do that, then I can make them happy, and the energy eases, and they stop bothering me. So I found that you have to kind of, through your experience, if you can catch yourself and just stop and listen and ask yourself, why is this person talking? Is it really because of what they're saying? But there's actually something underneath that they need from you. And if you are centered in your spiritual presence, you're connected with your source of strength and energy. That means that you have the capacity to help that person through your listening and by making them at ease. So that's just what I wanted to say about that.
I just want to add something. So the richer and keener your listening becomes, the more you can listen for that impulse, and the more you listen, or the more you can hear, catching yourself. So if you hear the impulse once, and then you listen for the catching of yourself once, then the next time you're able to listen again, and then the impulse becomes other impulses that you can hear, and then catching yourself becomes other catches that you can hear. And that's how it grows. That's how your listening practice, you take that on, and that is another action in awareness that you take on, and that's how it grows and grows and grows. Or listening for the feeling or the notion that that you feel that you're invisible. I mean, listening for that, listening for how we show up is huge. And listening for if we're showing up feeling invisible, what do we do to And sometimes it's okay. You're feeling fine being invisible. Sometimes you just want to be left alone. Other times you want to say, okay, I'm feeling invisible. Let my listening be the bridge that connects me to not being invisible if I want to be visible. How do I be visible now? Listening takes you to know that you're being invisible, takes you to know that you're being visible, and how you connect the dots. Gail?
Well, two things. One, when Jamie was speaking, I was thinking that he was speaking the most essential need that parents need, because to parent a child, I mean, that's what it comes down to. That's what we're talking about, really, to get beyond the words or the yelling or whatever's going, and really get to, like, well, what does my child need? A child could call you upstairs, child went to bed and then could call you at 9:30 and say, Mom, I need a glass of water or something like that. And, from your listening, you can really discern, well, he's probably not really that thirsty, but he just needs my presence or my, like my comfort or just my company. So that's one thing that as a parent, you need that completely. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, this is a little bit different than what you had asked, Katrina, but about how, as we grow and change, how the listening changes with another person. And for me, the focus of that is really how the listening has changed for myself over the years. How as I grow, my listening, it just becomes deeper, And one big change that I could say about that for myself is that I feel that I'm much more able to see my emotions and my reactions now, and not have them have power over me. I mean, I'm not perfect. I still, there are times, I guess, if the attachment is too great, I'll just like yell at my son or my husband or, whatever it is. But I really could see now that, these thoughts and these feelings and emotions will come up. I was really just noticing this last night, actually. I was just like lying in bed, and all these things were bothering me. And I have become aware, like, wow, in the past, I would have believed all those things. I would have believed, well, that's really who I am. That's me. I am upset about blah. That's me. And I just sat there and I let all these things that were bothering me. It was like what Jamie was saying before. It's like I just kind of watched them, It's like I didn't become them. And that was wonderful. I mean, to me, that is really what freedom really is. So I'm working on that, more and more every day.
Well, I love the authenticity that shows up here, because within this listening practice, this listening art, we are authentic. We can listen, like Mark was talking about, to when he's listening, when he's not listening. What Jamie was saying, what Katrina was saying, what Gail is saying. What we often always say, because listening is so safe. Because when you listen, so what, I didn't listen today. I know I can. So what if I miss this right now? I'm listening past it. There's something else for me here. There's a lesson to learn about listening that I might not have heard had I listened. It takes us deeper. It takes us to an awareness of, what have I missed here? Or, what am I practicing? What's my practice? Just like Jamie said when we opened up about, he's trying something new. Oh my God, could you imagine all the things we could try new in this realm of practicing listening? I just love that. So I want to thank everybody for being so authentic with your humanness, so that everybody out in the world can know that a listening practice is a practice of humanness. Elaine, you're being very quiet.
So this was a rather interesting week for me. I had procrastinated a lot about things related to doing income taxes and collecting documents and looking them over and crunching numbers. And also during this week, there was a lot going on with my parents with legal things and meetings with other family members, and the tempo of all of that had me out of some of the rhythms that I normally am in. I was staying up late some nights, getting things done. And yet I found myself consciously making choices and realizing, well, forgiving myself for whatever choices I've made about using my time before, this is where I am. Today, this is my leading edge. And no matter how it appears to anybody else, I'm just going to be doing the best I can. And so weaving that back into listening, the truth is, no matter how we appear to other people, everything going on all the time, it's always perfect. And as we grow more awake and aware, happily, we have more consistent awarenesses that we can be at that observer place, and just kind of notice whatever the dynamic is within ourselves or within the other person, and just kind of be okay with it, and appreciate, as Heidi and Mark were talking about, and Margarita also. It's all this vibration. It's all this dance. This is what creation does, And in this moment, I'm fitting in perfectly. And as long as I kind of can get out of a place of judgment, it's like, it's all okay. It's all okay.
Thank you, Elaine, because I was sitting here, and thank you, everybody, because this is really very interesting. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about some of these things and the blank, and how some things seem so good, so okay, and then all of a sudden, in a day or in a heartbeat, that's not so okay anymore, because there's something else waiting for me to hear that changes what I thought was okay. And so I think that's how life evolves. I could be doing something today or some kind of work, and it seems perfectly fine. And then all of a sudden something else comes, and it takes me in another direction, and because of listening, I'm able to do that without blaming, without thinking, well, why didn't I already know that? How come I didn't already do that? It's because that's what life is. That's the creativity of it. It's going to keep on challenging, showing up in a different way, and that's what it's going to keep doing. And listening is our saving grace. Listening is what's going to prepare us to take it on, for the authenticity, for people like us and all of you out there that are listening to come together and be okay and go with the flow. So listening is the flow, listening is discernment, listening is catching yourself, listening is being visible, being invisible, listening is a vibration, listening is everything that you're also. Listening is how we listened before and how we put it together to how we listen now. Lovely. Listening is lovely. Mark, Heidi? Listening is for your name.
Well, unfortunately, we've had audio problems, and we couldn't hear Gail or Elaine. We have no idea why. So I'm not sure what we can say about listening at this point. We were a little preoccupied with that, trying this and that.
So can I add? So you cannot hear Elaine or Gail at all today.
No,
Gail sometimes Elaine not at all.
Yeah, and we always see you instead of them.
Yeah.
You are still on our screen. This is really strange, and we will see it on the recording. how it is.
So
Another question for the Hangout helper.
Yeah.
What is happening here?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd like to talk about that and how we handle it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you handle it? Because things like this happen in life all the time. Is there another message? Is there this notion of patience?
You know, when we listen to technology, and there are studies about that you can influence technology, and doing a shortcut that obviously we didn't want to hear anything of Elaine today. Technology said no, and from Gail only some words, so a little bit she came over. Everybody else was easy to listen to. The picture changed. But, I mean, I'm joking, but this is true. You know that even technology is influenceable by our thoughts and by it's so listening seems to be not only let's say a human quality, but also quality for animals for sure, but maybe even of inanimate things. So
of the universe itself.
Of the universe, yeah. That's just to throw it into the discussion.
That's very interesting. Jamie.
Yeah, I'm just expecting any moment something to happen to Gail to sort of put this, to show this as a manifestation of what we're talking about, because that normally happens, Gail, right? Any moment something's going to happen to her, I'm pretty sure of it.
What can you make up about this?
Well,
make something up.
The thing that's in my mind is it's a bit connected actually to something that Mark said a bit earlier in the conversation about, because Mark, I've been doing something similar to you, and I often do that. When you're listening to someone or when you're listening to a conversation, often you're actually formulating what your response is and not really concentrating on what the person's saying. You're kind of half concentrating on what they're saying, but at the same time you're kind of formulating trying to sound some intelligent, amusing thing, which is kind of what you were saying, Mark, earlier. And I know the same thing happens with me. And actually, since you said that, Mark, it actually made me aware of that in that moment. And since that moment of this conversation, I've just been totally listening without trying to think of what I'm going to say next. Just like totally following the flow of the conversation. And that actually reminds me of a time when I was in the monastery teaching, and I found that experience that when you're teaching, like giving spiritual teachings in a seminar or whatever, what happens is that you're so totally focused and present on what people are asking you that you're not planning what to say. And when they stop talking, suddenly the words just come to you. It's like you don't plan it, you don't kind of decide what you're going to say. It's just suddenly the answer comes out. And I think that's really the kind of the skillful way to be listening is to be concentrating on what somebody's saying and not trying to think about what you're about to say next. And then when they stop talking, what comes out of your mouth will be exactly what is needed in the moment. Do you see what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's trust. It's just knowing that whatever comes out is perfectly fine, because if not, then we are not listening. Right? That was good. Katrina, I want to ask you something. So you asked a question.
Yes.
What happened?
I loved that people said what they felt, what they were moved to share, and I wasn't really expecting anyone to answer it directly, but they did all answer my question in a way that was perfect. That's what I think. And really, truthfully, Gail had said, I'm not really sure if you're answering your question. I'm answering your question, Katrina, but she absolutely was. I was definitely wanting to know how these experiences have influenced you personally and how that's changed you as a person in terms of how you listen. And when you can separate yourself from the distractions of what you're hearing and listen to yourself, you're able to then reweave those pieces together. Because I think when you are in the moment, you're hearing yourself and then you have to figure out a way to integrate the other pieces, because it has to be all in the flow. And you aren't on the planet by yourself. You're on a planet with lots of other folks and lots of other energy and computers that don't work when the where and how they're supposed to. So when you take all those pieces, you're attributing some sort of value to that. And I do feel that when you're listening, part of it, that is the weighing in the value that you're putting to what you're hearing. So our value system is very closely tied to what we're hearing and what we're listening to as well. And I think that was very evident in all the responses that came from my question. It was very much not only what they were hearing or listening to, but it was their value. You know, what values they have as a person and what value they place on hearing that information and how they integrate it into their life.
That was beautiful. And in a regular conversation, you know, Gail might have said what she said, and Katrina would have had an opportunity to say something about what she just said. Maybe, you know, maybe she would have said, "Oh, Gail, you did great," or, you know, "You did great, and then I love how you went to this," you know, and then Gail might have said, "Oh, thank you, you know, but whatever." So, you know, I think it's really important that we give the idea of how you model the listening. We talk about it, but I love the idea of modeling the process. You know, so which we do when we talk and we share, and then somebody remembers what somebody else said because it pushed a button. You know, if somebody uses a word, you know, just like Jamie referred to something about, you know, pre-thinking an answer or whatever, because those things, they register with us because we hear them, because they feel we own them too. They're ours too.
Yeah, just like that story that I told you of that gentleman that's like, "Hey, I can't really hear you if you're trying to talk over me. It's we can't have this exchange." That absolutely changed how I listen from that moment forward, and it's a story that I remember all the time. It absolutely influenced who I am today because of that very specific moment in time.
It's great, and I'm delighted I mean, I think it's really so wonderful that this is a forum to share those things. Because in here, this is a container for all of everything that we can drum up, remember, futurize about listening. And I take a lot of what you say, even if I don't remember it in the moment, it's there. If it's somewhere attached to my system, you know? So Marguerite, I know that you've been very quiet too.
So the way I mean, Jamie inspired me, Elaine inspired me really much, and now Katrina about listening, of course, Gail and Heidi also, and Mark and yourself. But the result of actually listening to what somebody says, there is like this well of compassion that comes up. And then when you can see their responses, that you listen to them, let's say with a client or a friend, whatever, and when they see that you listen to them, you pay attention to them, something happens in them. And there is like going back and forth, and then this like compassionate energy is flowing. Because I didn't do anything, I didn't say anything, but yet the person on the other side who I listened to, there happened something with them. They got connected. They just by paying attention, and I think that's the essential of listening here. And I'm thinking of Elaine here. She was very quiet too, and I have also experienced a lot of difficult things. And we all have, right? But I could understand what she was talking about. And listening to that made me feel some kind of transition in some way.
It's wonderful. Well, we're all on our own journey. We're on a universal journey, and then we're on our own journey. And I have no idea what else. I just know that the more I listen, the more I don't know. And the more I listen, the more I figure out. So and then you just throw up your hands and you go, so it should be. Yeah, Gail.
So, first of all, Marguerite, thank you so much, because that was what I really wanted to say the whole time, or that was like the crux of it. Like listening is blank. And I think if I had to say one word, I would say listening is unity. Because when you really listen to somebody else, your separation dissolves and you were one, you were one with that person. And to me, there's nothing more joyful or important or graceful than that.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I think we should sing to Dave. Everybody ready? Get your singing voices on.
Oh, okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Happy birthday
to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday to you.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
That's lovely. And for those of you who don't know Dave Moore, so plus him on Google Plus. He's a lovely man, and he's always there for us, and we thank him very much. And if Jeremy is out on the comments, we love him too. I hope your dog is okay today. And Kalani, we miss you, but we know you're doing some really major things, and we miss you, and Sheila as well. So now, in the last few minutes that we have, you've all been fabulous, and I have a really interesting thing for next week, I believe. But let's go and say just briefly what you're doing, what you need, or what you're doing, or what you need, or an event you're having. Pick something and go with it. So Heidi and Mark.
Our common event, which is coming up in 2 weeks, we begin the new season of the Wisdom Factory, and we will have wisdom technologies. So practices, inner and outer practices in many ways. That will be very interesting. And then I go to a conference, integral conference in Germany, and some other integral meetings in Germany, and things like that.
And the summer goes. Yes.
All right, good. Lane?
Yeah.
Hi. Well, next week, Tuesday on the Holy Shift Show, I think we're going to be talking about this website's being mobile ready, and William Rock's going to be on the show and a couple others. I don't know. I'm venturing into more geeky territory. But the other thing I want to mention is that World Laughter Day is coming up on May 3rd. And, laughter is this universal human language. And so stay tuned. I'm going to be holding probably 3 different hangouts varieux. And I will be inviting some of you who are hangout ready to join me for one of the programs.
Good. Perfect. Gail?
Well, let's see. I'm very excited because actually next week, my co-author, Brandy Raris, and I, we're going to be flying to Minnesota to do a fundraiser, an event for our book, Finding Zoe. It's called the Options Pregnancy Center, and that's actually a significant part of our book. So we're going to be there celebrating them and helping to raise money for them, and also doing a book signing. So really excited about that.
Cool. That sounds great. We'd love to hear about it. Well, I want to hear about all these things.
Oh, so actually, I won't be here next week. I just realized.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Jamie?
Hi. Yeah. Well, I would just to say again, some of you already know, I've got a free video series available on my website where I have 3 separate videos to give tips and practical applications about how you can use your spirituality in the 3 main areas of your life, which is at home, at work, and in your relationships. And it's about kind of accessing your own unique spirituality and using that to kind of enrich these areas of your life. So anyone who's interested, feel free to go over to my website and pick up those free videos.
Good. Thank you. And Katrina?
Yes, I'm working on a project with Andy Bryan and Mandy St. Victor called A Journey to Collective Leadership. We're doing our launch next week. It's basically how to map the hero's journey to your journey as a leader, so you can become a stronger leader, calling on your strengths and gifts, and how to do that in the most effective way. Our launch is on the 20th of April next week, so you can check out some free videos. We're going to be doing a lot of value add stuff next week to get people pumped up. So journeytocollectiveleadership.com if you want to check out more.
Good. Very good. Everybody's doing such exciting work. It's wonderful. And Marguerite?
Yes, I have a seminar, crystal seminar on Saturday. This is 2 days from now. And it's called Self-Healing, Tools for Self-Healing. And it also includes how you manage your energy and what is energy really, life force, raw energy, and other kind of emotional energy. So you can find it on my website, thecrystallotus.com.
Good. Thank you. And I'm going to be launching a coaching membership package and into a membership thing very, very soon, so be on the lookout. And otherwise, I have lots of other things, but it's time to go. So I want to thank everybody for listening today and for sharing their blank with us, and all of you down there in the strip. You're wonderful. You're marvelous. I look forward to hearing about what you're all accomplishing, and send pictures. Let's post pictures of your accomplishments, because you're listening. You're listening to create these, and you're brave enough to push the launch button, and that's listening. So I want to thank you all very much for showing up as you do, and everyone out there. We'll see you next week. Have a lovely listening week. Bye.